And now, the last episode of Francis and Robert's Science Stories. Yes, I know if you were to look on the site, you would see a couple more down below. Problem, that part is incomplete. And as you know, we do complete stories on this show. Very rarely do we do incomplete. Nadia woke up with a smile on her face. Then again, she always had a smile on her face when she held Donovan through the night. Sure, held. She opened her eyes and looked at Donovan, and her smile changed from a frown. From the look on his face, the same look he had since Sonic had defeated Robotnik, and Robotnik had slipped away, it was apparent he had not slept well. Nadia sighed quietly, slipping her arms from around Donovan as she sat up. She pulled on a robe and stood from the bed. I wish there was more I could do for him, she thought, watching Donovan's sleep grow more restless. I wish there was more he let me do for him. Someone is approaching the highway of speed, the computer said in an undertone so as not to wake Donovan. Who is it? Nadia asked. It appears to be Sandra, but I can't be sure. How can you be not sure? You'll see, the computer said, with what could be a smirking voice. She's nearing the door now. Nadia slipped out of the bedroom and made her way to the door. Just as Sandra was about to knock, Nadia opened the door. What brings you here this early, Sandra? Nadia asked, blinking the last of the sleep from her eyes. Is it obvious? Sandra asked, a hint of annoyance in her voice. Nadia looked at Sandra, then did a double take. She was wearing a bright pink dress and gloves. Nadia knew that could only mean one thing. It's today. Yeah, and both Sally and Bunny have asked. No, demanded that you two be there. The ceremony starts in 2 hours. Please don't be late, or you're going to have two very angry brides coming here to thank you for sanctuary. Sanctuary? I thought it would be held in Metropolis. Nah, the reception will be there, but after all that's happened, they want to finish what they started where they started it. Nadia smiled and shook her head. We'll be there, she promised. Now, you get out of here so I can go wake him up. All right, Sandra grumbled. But remember, you only have 2 hours to get there. Oh, plenty of time for some... well, you know. Sandra, I'm surprised at you, Nadia said with a hint of a smile on her face and voice. All I'm going to do is wake him up. Sure. Next thing you know, you'll tell me you don't plan on marrying him. Sandra joked, shaking her head. Anyway, I best be getting back. Both Sally and Bunny are freaking out. Everything okay? Nadia asked, concerned. Pretty much. Only Rosie's nowhere to be found. See you later, Nadia. Sandra took off in a pink blur before Nadia could ask any more questions. Nadia closed the door and went back to the bedroom. Donovan was still asleep with that look on his face. Nadia slipped into the bed next to him and tickled his ear. Donovan crumbled something in his sleep and batted her hand. Nadia arched one eyebrow, then kissed him lightly on the lips. Not tonight, Donovan grumbled. I'm not in the mood. Then he turned on his side away from Nadia. Already, Nadia muttered. She rolled out of bed and grabbed hold of the mattress. Time to wake up! She yelled, dumping him on the mattress onto the floor. I didn't know you wanted to wake me up so bad. Donovan groaned, not moving from how he landed. It's not me, Nadia said, pulling the mattress on the bed. A presence has been requested at Sanctuary. By Thomas? Donovan asked, starting to get up. No, by a princess. Also, I say, the princess will be queen by day's end. Coronation? Donovan asked, dusting himself off. After the weddings, Nadia said. We've got less than 2 hours to get ready, and according to Sandra, if we're not there, those two brides will come drag us there. They've waited over a year to get married, Donovan pointed out, rubbing the sleep from his eyes. I doubt they'll take the time to walk here and drag us there. Do you want to tense it? Donovan shot Nadia a look that said, what kind of question is that? Aloud he said, besides, I have work to do. Nadia stood in the doorway, barring his way. Whatever it is, it can and will wait, she said. Like you said, this day has been a year in the making. Was this all the more reason to do for what I have to do? Make sure it's not interrupted, like last year, Nadia sighed exasperation. Donovan, I'm not arguing about this. You have a choice. Go take a shower and get ready to go, or get knocked unconscious while I do it for you. 3 reasons why you won't do that. 1, I won't let you. 2, I'm not worthy enough to go. 3, if you manage to do it, which you won't, we don't exactly have anything to wear. Nadia's eyes grew hard as she stared at Donovan. First of all, you don't let me do anything. Second, I don't ever want to hear you say that again. The swallow I love is one of the most worthiest creatures on this planet. Even after failing to keep his word, Donovan interrupted, and in doing so, may have cost Mobius its freedom someday in the future. Who says you didn't keep your word? I see you as justice delayed. You get another chance, and next time you'll be ready. Donovan turned his good eye on Nadia, considering his words. Very well, I'll accept that. I just hope it's not too late. The future comes when it comes, Donovan. We can't control it. We just have to be ready for it. Now go shower. What about the third? What about it? Nadia asked with a mysterious smile. Black vests and boots is not exactly proper attire for a wedding. Donovan said quietly, neither are black sweats. Nadia said nothing more, just smiling that mysterious smile of hers. As he moved out of the doorway, he started shoving him toward the bathroom. Donovan sighed and went to take a shower. When he was done, he walked back to the room. On the bed laid his white uniform, the same one he wore when he went into battle against the Kavanaugh. Though it had been pretty torn up that day, it looked good as new. What the? Donovan whispered, walking to the bed and picking up his uniform. A note fell from the pocket. Donovan caught it before he hit the bed and read it. The note read, I figure you might need this today. Rosie. Donovan smiled a half-smile. The legend lives again, he thought, shaking his head. He got dressed and found it fit him perfectly. Now I just have to worry about what Nadia's going to wear, he said. No, you don't, Nadia said behind him. Donovan turned to look at her and caught his breath. Nadia was wearing a gray dress that closely matched her fur. It was off the shoulder and fell straight down to her knees. Her blonde hair was freshly brushed and tied with a gray ribbon, the same color as her dress. She had on just a touch of makeup, not really noticeable unless you were looking for it. So, what do you think? She asked, doing a slow turn for Donovan. You see, folks, knights do tend to wear the same colors as their loves as a show of respect and bonding. Donovan walked up to her and took her hand in his. He brought it to his lips and kissed it gently. I never thought I'd say this, he said softly, but you look more beautiful now than when I first saw you as a lynx. Nadia blushed and smiled. You turned into a real charmer, you know that. She chuckled a moment, then cleared her throat. We really should be going. Just as Donovan and Nadia were leaving their hut, Sally and Bunny were in the royal chambers of the palace of Mobotropolis. Where is she? Sally asked for the 100th time, her face a mask of frustration. Bunny sighed loudly, her expression not far from Sally's. I don't know, Sal girl, but she better show up soon. I don't feel like being late to my own wedding, especially seeing how long it took us to get here. Exactly my thoughts, Sally said, adjusting her bathrobe. Well, it almost felt like it had been about a month to get here. At the sound of the door opening, Sally turned to see who was coming in. But when she saw it wasn't Rosie, frustration returned. Oh, hi, Patricia, she muttered. Is that any way to greet your soon-to-be mother-in-law? Patricia asked with a smile, dragging a bag behind her. Especially one who's going to help you get ready for your wedding? Bunny and Sally were surprised. You? Bunny asked. Well, we were thinking it was going to be Rosie, like last time. I thought that too, Patricia confessed, until she came to me earlier and asked me to take care of it. She said something really important came up. A pit of worry opened up in Sally's stomach. I hope it's nothing serious. Probably is, from the way she was talking, Patricia said. But whatever it is, she said she could handle it, and I believe her. Now then, let's get you two ready. Sally and Bunny nodded slowly and let Patricia go about her business. They exchanged a look, both reading each other's thoughts. This doesn't feel right, they were both thinking. It should be Rosie doing this. What could be more important than a key beer for Ness? Meanwhile, Tails, Sonic, and Antoine were waiting outside Sanctuary. "We should be here soon," Tails said. "After all the waiting, you guys are finally gonna go through it." "You could say that again, little bro," Sonic said, smiling. He seemed calm at ease, sure of himself. Too bad the same couldn't be said for Antoine. "But perhaps I should be checking on some things," Antoine stammered, smoothing out his tuxedo jacket, his French accent returning for the force. "Why so nervous, Aunt?" Tails joked, nudging Antoine with his wrist. "Though you'd be anxious to make Bunny your wife." "You're correct, Tails," Antoine said, wiping his brow. "But I am quite worried about tonight, especially with what Bunny has been promised me." With complete seriousness, Antoine added, "I am hoping I will be able to survive it." Tails and Sonic were about to laugh. Then, remembering that Bunny could still turn partly robotic, they stifled it and winced. "Don't worry about it," Sonic said, clearing his throat. "I'm sure she'll be careful." Bunny would totally be doing a reverse cowgirl. "If worst comes to worst, I'm sure Taz can heal you," Tails said with a nervous chuckle. "Is someone in need of healing?" a quiet voice asked. They turned to look and saw Lynx dressed in the robes of a holy one standing nearby. "A Lynx? I can't believe this. All these Lynx jokes we've been making throughout this whole entire story, and now we got somebody that actually looks like he's related to Nicole." "Who are you?" Sonic asked. "I am Toria Leronti," the Lynx answered, an accent similar to Antoine's voice. "I will be proceeding over the ceremony today. May I presume that you are the grooms and the best man?" "Presiding?" Sonic got surprised. "I thought Thomas would be doing that." Toria shrugged slightly, sending ripples through his gray robes. "He had his reasons why he may not. Indeed, reasons I might add, I am not at liberty to discuss with anyone. If you will all excuse me, I will see you inside." Sonic, Tails, and Antoine nodded absently as Toria headed inside. "I have a bad feeling about this," Sonic muttered, shaking his head. "Something's not right about this." "It's not like anything can happen inside Sanctuary," Tails said, though his voice lacked a certain convention. "Stop being a worrywart." "If you say so, little bro," Sonic said, not sounding convinced. "If you say so." Back at the royal chambers, Patricia just finished putting the final touches on Sally and Bunny when there was a knock on the door. "Don't either of you move," Patricia said, heading to the door. She opened it and caught her breath. Sally, there's someone here to see you." Sally stood up and turned around as Patricia moved away from the doorway. Her eyes widened when she saw who was standing there. "Daddy!" she said, smiling.
"Hello, Sally,"
King Acorn said, walking into the room.
"I can't stay long because you have a wedding to get to, but there's something I wanted to tell you."
"Should I be leaving?" Bunny asked, standing up tall as well.
"No need,"
King Acorn answered.
"I wanted to tell you both how happy I am for you, and goodbye."
"Goodbye," Sally said slowly. "But Daddy—"
"No but, Sally. I've made up my mind. You and your friends have done what I've only dreamed of. You restored our planet. I would be out of place in times to come, especially with the U.S. Queen."
"But where will you go?"
"We have a mission of our own, Your Majesty,"
Naga said, entering the room.
"Tanis has taken our evil from us, and though Robotnik is gone, there is still much evil in this world. You cannot fight it because your place is here. We have no such place."
"Well, Sally could send armies, could send forces, could send Sonic as a SWAT team."
"Something big is coming, Sally," King Acorn continued. "Nagas and I work fast. We may be able to head it off, whatever it is. I know the kingdom and planet will be in good hands."
"Well, will you at least stay for the wedding?" Sally asked.
"Of course. How could I miss the biggest day of my being's life?"
Sally smiled, but it was a sad smile. "All right, Daddy. Please keep in touch, though."
"As you wish, Your Majesty,"
King Acorn said with a bow.
"Now I'll leave you to finish your preparations."
Before Sally could say anything more, her father turned and left with Nagas in tow. "By the way, I know Sally's getting coronated, but I totally did not mean to make this match up with the soon-to-be coronated King Charles. Sally wiped a tear from her eyes, the door closed. I guess it's for the best, she said to no one in particular. And yet, I don't want to see him go. You'll be okay, Sal, girl, Bunny said, giving her best friend a hug. Careful not to mess up the makeup. Come on, we've got a wedding to get to. A sanctuary, Antoine had almost placed a rut in the ground when Morris came out.
They're on their way,
he said, sifting a squirming Kelly in his arms.
You boys to wait inside. Remember, no seeing the bride till ceremony.
Thanks, Dad, Sally said, grabbing Antoine by the back of his jacket and dragging him inside. Tails followed close behind, but Maurice had to run after Kelly Min, who had managed to get onto the ground and was half crawling, half wriggling to the nearest mud pile. Meanwhile, on the floating island, two Echidnas sat in the Emerald Chamber, watching the recordings. They've earned this, Knuckles said, his gloved hands crossed in his lap. It looks like this time the ceremony won't be interrupted. Not by me, at least. The other Echidna smiled and sat down in Knuckles' laps. That reminds me, she said, brushing her branded locks from her face. They better be cybernetic locks! When are we going to talk about our ceremony? Knuckles smiled back. All in due time, Judy Sue, he said, kissing her cheek. All in good time, my love. Sometime later, Sally and Bunny were waiting patiently outside Sanctuary's doors, listening for the music that would signal their entrances. Are you ready, Bunny? Sally whispered, nearly shaking with nervousness and excitement. I'll be ready for a year now, Sally girl, Bunny said, nearly wriggling her bouquet of flowers in half. In only a few minutes, I'm going to be Mrs. Duclette, and I can't wait. Sally nodded in reply, but before she could say more, she heard the music begin. Let's go, you two, Sandra called, sticking her head out the doors. Sally and Bunny walked slowly through the doors, each holding a bouquet of flowers in one hand and grasping the other his hand for support. They walked down the aisle behind Sandra, their steps low and measured. Sally looked around and saw Lydia, Isabella, and Dorian sitting on one of the benches. Sally didn't fully like the idea of her cousin being with Dorian, but she had no reason to doubt his motives, not anymore. Just another walk down the aisle until the happily ever after. What? I also do gem music. As they continued down the aisle, Sally realized that the Holy One standing before the altar was not Thomas, but some link she had never heard before. First Rosie and now Thomas, she wondered to herself. What's going on here? Seated in the front row were the families of the brides and grooms, some of them recently just de-roboticized. You know what I have to shake my head at? You know, Dorkly apparently would think that roboticization, which takes away your free will, puts you into a never-ending hell of being forced to work for robotic forever, is a good thing, because you're in a robotic body. Uncle Chuck whispered a few last words of encouragement to Sonic before taking a seat beside his brother. Sally smiled behind her veil and had the strange feeling that Uncle Chuck had to do the same thing when Morris married Patricia. Sandra moved to the side, and both brides went on to stare before their husbands to be. But the wedding march kept playing, and all of a sudden Sally heard the crowd at Sanctuary draw a collective breath. Sally turned around to see what was wrong, and caught her breath herself. It was Silver and Blaze. They were going to get married today. Chains. It was Shadow and Roots. They were going to get married today. Chains. It was Jeffrey and Hershey. Chains. It was Tangle and Whisper. Yay! Chains. It was Skirts and Fiona. What? Clad in a simple white dress, holding a bouquet of white roses, looking happier than Sally thought she'd seen her look, Rosie walked down the aisle of Sanctuary. Though her veil was drawn low, Sally could still recognize the face of the one she loved like her own mother, even though they now looked the same age. Out of the corner of her eye, she saw Thomas walk from his room in the back, dressed in his finest robes. They met at the altar and took each other's hands. Donovan looked from Thomas to Rosie, back to Thomas, and again to Rosie. He started to lift his hand to his forehead, but Nadia caught his wrist. None of us saw this coming, she whispered. Everyone in here is surprised.
I've got a lot more to learn,
Donovan said to himself.
Gentle creatures,
Torier said warmly.
today we have gathered to join these couples in wedlock. If anyone has just cause why they should not spend the rest of their lives together, let us speak now, or forever hold their peace.
A chill ran through Sally, but she couldn't help but think that Knuckles was going to appear, just as he did 1 year ago. Many of the others who had been doing the same, but no one came and no one spoke. Sally let out her breath, not even realizing she had been holding it until that point.
Marriage is a sacred pact,
Torier continued.
It is a promise born of love and the desire to be with the one you love for the rest of your life, if not longer. It is a joyous day when a man and woman wish to make this pact. Today, that joy is threefold. Ordinarily, this is where I read the standard vows, and those before me say I do. But this is anything but ordinary. I have been told that they all wish to express their vows in their own way. So I bid you all to begin.
Each turned to face their love, a smile on their eyes and their lips. Antoine was the first to speak.
My love, he began. For years I tried to keep my feelings for you hidden away from the world, especially from myself. But you never gave up on me, and you stood by me even when it seemed I could be the downfall of everything we were trying to do. And never before have I heard of such a love, and I will never will again. My only wish is to stand by your side for all eternity as your husband. My love, Bunny began with a choked voice, I knew I loved you from even before the war began with Robotnik. All I ever wanted to do was to love you and be loved by you. Today, we began our lives as husband and wife, and I promise to give you all the love you deserve, even if you don't always think I do. Oh, look, if you look in the background, you could see... Hey, wait a minute. Is that Ian and his wife sitting in the far background holding each other's hands?
My dearest Rosie,
Thomas said softly,
through the grace of the Almighty, we have been given our lives back. I want to spend it with you. Every minute, every hour, every second that we've been given will not mean anything to me if I am not to spend it with you. I swear to you that all the happiness that I would have brought you had we married all those years ago will pale in the happiness I bring you now.
Oh, Thomas, Rosie said, I had this whole speech memorized, but hearing you makes me what I was going to say seem flat and useless. Let me say this again. From this moment on, wherever our lives take us, know that I will always be beside you, and nothing will ever separate us again.
Sally? Sonic said with voice filled with emotion. Ever since we were children, I knew where I belonged. It wasn't as the fastest thing alive, or the hero of Mobius. It was by your side as your husband. I may not have always been able to say this, but you've become a part of me. Not just my heart, but a part of me. My mind, heart, body, and soul are yours, now forever.
Sonic, Sally said, smiling despite her tears, though I may come to rule Mobius and all the animals who live upon it, I know that I myself am ruled by one. And that is you, Sonic, my love, my life. We've been through almost anything in our life that could possibly throw us, yet we remain strong in our love together. Now all of Mobius shall know our love as to become, now and forever, your wife.
Exchange your rings,
Torier said. As the six before him did so, he continued,
Let the gold in those rings never tarnish, as your love for each other never will. There is nothing more to say, save that I now pronounce you husbands and wives. You may now kiss your brides.
Sonic, Antoine, and Thomas lifted the veils of their new wives and kissed them deeply and fully. The kisses were returned with as much, if not more, feeling. And for that one moment, all that was worth any of them was that kiss. Thomas and Rosie were the first to break their kiss.
And now,
Thomas said quickly,
We have one more thing we must take care of.
Sonic and Sally took a slight step back and turned to face Thomas. Sally immediately dropped down to one knee, with Sonic following suit a second later. Torier stepped away from the altar as Thomas and Rosie approached. I almost forgot about this, Sonic whispered to Sally. Are you sure? Don't even start, Sonic, Sally whispered back fiercely. There's no one who deserves to be king more than you. You saved us all, and you're my husband now. Just be quiet and accept it. Thomas and Rosie stepped down from behind the altar, each holding a crown bearing the symbol of Mobius. As one, they stepped toward kneeling Sonic and Sally, and when they spoke, they also spoke as one. Side note, but I've also noticed that another popular video of mine is the one that has Link and Zelda having a kid together. I wonder, just how many views would I get if I were to do an epic Legend of Zelda fic on this show?
Sonic and Sally, for 13 years you've both been devout and recognized leaders of Mobius. Today we rectify that. By accepting these crowns, you accept the duties and responsibilities as Queen and King of Mobius. Do you accept them?
Sonic and Sally nodded their heads ever so slightly. Thomas placed the crown he held on Sonic's head, the same one that Sally's father had himself worn. Oh look, there are those 4 weird Freedom Emerald things that are kind of like Chaos Emeralds, but we're not. Ah, you see, Ian, you're not the only one who remembers continuity. Rosie placed the other crown on Sally's head, the crown that had once been her mother's.
Now rise, greet your subjects,
Thomas and Rosie said, smiling. The new king and queen rose to their feet and turned to face the others.
Let all who now know that the House of Acorn rules Mobius once more.
Rosie called in a loud voice. No, Sally said, holding up her hand. I will not make Sonic take my name. For all he has done for this world, let him know from this point on, the ruling family of Mobius is the House Hedgehog.
Sally,
Queen Emeritus Acorn called warningly, standing up. Father, Sally called. It is my right to do so.
What a covenant.
No one back then could have foreseen what we've all had to gone through. And even if they had, they would have assumed that the House of Acorn could settle it. We did not. Sonic did. And with a new freedom for Mobius comes a new ruling family. Sally turned to Thomas and directed her next question at him. Am I wrong? Thomas closed his eyes and said with a quiet prayer. After a moment, he opened his eyes and looked at Sally.
Your decision has the Almighty's blessing,
he said quietly. Sally smiled and turned to her father. The former king bowed his head in acquiescence and said no more. Sally turned to look at everyone else, but no one had anything to say with her. Applause and tears filled the sanctuary as everyone realized that the day that had been a year in coming had finally come to pass. But even that paled in comparison to the applause and tears that sounded through all of Mobius as the doors of the sanctuary opened and the newlywed couples emerged into the bright sunlight. They stood there for a moment, letting it all sink in. It's finally over, isn't it? Sally whispered, smiling radiantly.
When one journey ends, another one begins,
Thomas said quietly.
Yes, Robotnik is gone, but that doesn't mean it's all over.
Hey, no gloom and doom today, Sonic said. We've all been waiting for this, so I say we forget all that, even if it's just for today. Sounds good to me, Sugar Hog, Bunny said. Let's get out here and join the party. Without waiting for anyone else, she grabbed her new husband's hand and dragged him down the stairs. And what a party it was! It was, and the party decorations and such were provided by a combination of Mina playing by music. Hi! Dresses provided by Honey. And decorations and the rest of the party stuff, including bakery, was provided by one P.D. Pot.
Pinky!
You said keep leaving your planeswalker ring on the doorstep on your dresser.
You're right, I shouldn't be leaving my planeswalker ring on my dress. How did you get into my room?
It's a secret.
Trixie?
Yes.
Amplify security. Put in some more words.
You got it.
There was more food than anyone had ever seen, including chili dogs just for the royal couple, of course. The wedding cake was made in about 5 tiers, each beautifully decorated with personal messages for those who pitched in. When the time came to cut the cake, Sally and Bunny both warned their men not to make a mess. Reluctantly they agreed, only to have cake stuffed in their faces. Tana smiled and laughed. He then turned to Rosie just in time to get cake pushed into his own face. Traditionally, you're supposed to eat a little bit of it. My dad, of course being a dragon, took a huge bite of his. He kindly wiped off his face and picked up a piece in his own hand.
Older Nanny, you paid for that, he said. I don't feel like having our wedding reception turn into a food fight.
Oh, but Weiss is here and she loves it. Yes. There are mummy versions of the girls. It's awesome. Rosie let out an involuntary sigh as Tanis fed her the cake nicely.
Besides,
he whispered so no one else could hear,
I'll save that for afterwards.
The reception continued on with a lot of singing, dancing, and general happiness. Donovan, on the other hand, seemed to withdraw more into himself as the day wore on. Nadia tried more than once to drag him away from the wall, which he did, but he always returned to the wall. So he likes Pink Floyd.
What is with you?
Nadia demanded.
You promised you wouldn't tread on it, remember?
And I'm keeping my promise, Donovan answered quietly.
So what is it?
Donovan sighed. Take a look around. What do you see?
I see a lot of animals enjoying themselves, especially the 6 newlyweds.
A lot of animals that were formerly roboticized, and currently find themselves face to face with relatives they haven't seen since the coup. Well, except for Bunny, whose life is pain and misery, and her mom and dad are dead. Nadia's eyes salted as he realized what Donovan meant.
Oh, Donovan, I'm sorry,
she said. Donovan just waved it off. So forgive me if I'm a little withdrawn, but today's not a day to worry about me. Let's just let the couples enjoy that day.
Wait. Oh my gosh. I actually just realized you even have the Applejack has a realization that her parents will come back just like Donovan did!
Nadia just nodded and leaned against the wall near Donovan.
Don't argue, she said. The least I can do is keep you company.
Donovan put a finger on Nadia's lips. Parties like this do not happen very often. So you go out there and enjoy yourself. Nadia shook her head but said no more. She stayed quietly by Donovan until 2 cloaked figures drew near. Nothing could really be determined about these gray cloaked figures. Not even if they were male or female. Their hoods were drawn quite low. Donovan tried his best to maintain a neutral voice as he addressed the 2 figures. May I help you? He asked. The figures looked at each other, then looked at Donovan.
Don't try to hide your feelings like that.
The one on the left, obviously male, said,
You're not good at it.
Especially from us.
The one on the right, a female, said. Donovan's eye popped quite wide open as he heard the voices. Nadia caught the look out of the corner of his eye and turned to him.
What?
She asked worriedly. What is it?
Or maybe that he's surprised we're here.
The male said. Then he and his companion removed their cloaks. Oh my god, they're naked! Nadia saw they were squirrels. But more than that, she knew who they were.
By the Almighty,
she whispered. But you're...
Yes, we are,
the male said simply.
And you're right. It is by the Almighty.
The Almighty has allowed us a few hours back on Mobius,
the male said,
to be with our son.
A tear of joy filled Nadia's eye. She poked Donovan in her ribs.
Does he have anything to say to your penance?
She whispered. Donovan looked at the scrolls in front of him for a few seconds. Then he wrapped his arms around them and hugged them, tears dropping from his eye. By the Almighty, I missed you, he said between sobs.
We miss you too,
Deontay said, hugging his son back.
But let's not spend all this time getting emotional.
Unfortunately, your father's right.
Nancy said, also hugging her son. We're running here to those brides has the bouquets. Nadia smiled and turned away. I leave you three alone, she said. Nancy grabbed Nadia's tail, almost without looking. Oh, no, you don't, she said, pulling away her son's hug. So, how close are you to my son? Nadia turned a deep shade of pink. Mom, Donovan said, covering his face with his hand. Mommy later, Nancy said. Right now, I want to fight just as much as I can before I have to leave. She turned back to Nadia, who was just recovering from her blush. So, are you two as close as I think you are? How close would that be? Nadia asked, a new blush starting. Nancy glanced over her son. Close enough to ask for me from my son when he's going to put the ring on their finger, so there'll be a little Osirius running around. Donovan turned as red as Nadia, but even got worse when Nadia said, Actually, I've been wondering that myself. Donovan turned to his father. Dad, help.
I was on my own when your mother grilled me,
Deontay said calmly.
You're on your own now.
It doesn't look for your wish to get you out of this, Nancy said. It has been disabled for now.
Donovan stammered. It's getting hot in here. I think I'll go get some buns.
Sounds good to me, Nancy said. Then I can talk to Nadia alone. Donovan stopped in mid-step when his mother said that. He looked at his father pleadingly, but Deontay only raised his hand as if the ward glanced off and said,
Don't look at me.
A couple hours passed like that. Donovan's parents happily questioning their son and his love. Nadia and Donovan answered all the questions they best they could, but were quickly overwhelmed. At the end, all either could do was stammer out an either a yes or no. That end came all too soon for Donovan. Come on, everyone, Sandra called. They're getting ready to toss the bouquets. Nancy looked at her husband sadly. Where did the time go? She asked, putting her cloak back on. Sunrise, sunset. Sunrise, sunset. Donovan looked at his parents, tears in his eyes. Do you really have to go? He asked quietly. I'm afraid so, Deontay said, putting his cloak back on and pulling his hood over his head. But we'll be around, can't I not? I will, Donovan whispered. He smiled and put his arm around Nadia as he watched his parents turn and walk away. Moments they both disappeared from view. Nadia kissed Donovan's cheek lightly. You see, she whispered, the Almighty wouldn't give you this gift unless you deserved it. Donovan just nodded quietly. Nadia, excuse me. I have a bouquet to catch. That almost snapped Donovan from his thoughts. Fortunately for Nadia, it didn't. Otherwise, Donovan would have made sure she got nowhere near the bouquets. Sally, Bunny, and Rosie were standing in throng with single females. All the single ladies, all the single ladies, all the single ladies, all the single ladies. Now put your hands up. Just as it is on Earth, tradition on Mobius held that whoever female caught a wedding bouquet would be the next marry. One by one, the three brides turned their backs to the crowd, just so they could aim at their friends. Sally threw her bouquet first. Just as it came at Reese, a blue and pink burst snatched it from the air, came to a stop outside the group. No fair, Sandra, Nadia yelled, more mildly upset. Sandra then smirked and turned to look at Tails. Oh, Miles, she said in a low, sultry voice. Uh-oh, Tails said, edging back from her. Bunny threw her bouquet high in the air, but it didn't travel very far backward. One of a few ladies fell down trying to catch it, but it finally ended up in the hands of Lydia. Lydia smiled and turned to face Dorian, her garnet eyes glittering expectantly. Dorian, she began, a smile creeping across her lips. Dorian swallowed nervously and backed up slowly, glancing around so seeking the same avenue of escape. Rosie gave her bouquet a slight kiss and then threw it as far back as she could. To those watching, they could have sworn that the bouquet dropped right as it was over Nadia, falling right into her hands. But surely Rosie couldn't use her powers like that, would she? Nadia honestly didn't care. She saw Donovan pull out of his thoughts as Tails and Dorian backed up to him. Would you two, he began angrily, then saw the bouquets held by Lydia, Sandra, and Nadia. Lying waiting for me. He finished his throat. Bad idea, Tails said. Gentlemen, scatter! Donovan and Dorian needed no further urging. All three males took off at a run, heading in different directions. Sandra looked calmly at Nadia and Lydia. Ladies, shall we?
Just try and stop me.
Nadia said, hurrying off with Sandra.
And, oh my god, is that a scene break?
I mean, I know this is stuff for Raquel Min's part as it was described back in the author's note, but I haven't seen one of those in so long I forgot what they looked like. Thank you, scene break. Thank you. Lydia smiled as he saw Isabella prancing around in her new dress Rosie had been kind enough to make her. Lydia's eyes then moved to the direction Dorian had wandered off in. She twirled Buddy's bouquet in her hand, and her eyes moved to the new married couples. The three of them. Her eyes twinkled with an idea that had been stirring in her mind since Dorian came back. Walking over to Rosie, she tapped her shoulder, sorry she had to interrupt the dancing newlyweds. Rosie stopped dancing with Thomas and looked at Lydia, smiling softly.
Hello, Lydia,
she said quietly.
Do you want to cut in?
I wouldn't dream of it, Mrs. Shirot, Lydia somewhat teased. Thomas grinned at that, and Rosie blushed slightly. I was wondering if you wouldn't mind watching Isabella for a while. I hate to disturb you both, but you came to mind first, Rosie, Lydia said, rather apologetically. But she couldn't take Isabella with her, not with what she was going to do. Woo!
Don't be sorry, Lydia, Thomas said. It'll give us practice. Now go do what you need to.
Rosie smiled just a bit more, and Lydia chuckled. Thank you, Beth. Lydia smiled as Thomas and Rosie were soon dancing. Lydia walked off in the direction Dorian headed off, but stopped after a short way. Her mind directed to something. She glanced down her hands, looking at the 2 rings she wore. Her family shield and Jonathan's engagement ring. Which meant more? She didn't know yet. Dorian was in their hut, searching for something that had hidden the first night he had returned to Knothole. He smiled when he found it. He had discovered that Lydia preferred silver to gold. So silver it was. A simple silver band with a garnet stone in there. Garnet, like her eyes. He left the hut and headed back to the reception, but stopped short when he saw Lydia only a few meters away. Lydia, what are you doing here? Dorian asked abruptly. She had the right, but he just wanted to know.
I was wondering where you went off to,
Lydia whispered. She was glad she had some alone time with him. Dorian smiled. I was going to come back, if that's what worried you. I have no reason to leave anymore. He reassured her, or tried to.
That's a relief,
Lydia said, her voice fainting a bit. Lydia.
Dorian, will you marry me? Oh my word, they both sitting together. I know. How romantic.
Both asked in unison, revealing the rings they had for each other. Lydia had chosen to give them her family seal. They both seemed a bit surprised at his simultaneous question. I didn't expect that, Dorian admitted, chuckling.
I think, in a way, we both did,
Lydia said, smiling.
When?
She asked, touching her pieces of her voice. You honestly think I would deny you? Dorian inquired. Lydia's heart sunk. That hurt. Tears stung her eyes.
Were you thinking of it?
Lydia asked, her voice choked. Dorian, of course, had only been joking, but her tears showed him how serious she was. His regret was immediate. No, I was joking. I didn't think you would take it so seriously. He murmured as he embraced her.
The last man I was engaged to died, remember?
Lydia whispered.
I have to be serious about it. I don't want you to die off too.
This wasn't going as he planned. I should have realized, but it doesn't matter. I will be here, Lydia, for eternity. You have my word. And yes, Princess Lydia Evergreen, I will marry you. Dorian felt a little odd saying this, but he would. Lydia smiled through her tears.
Well, then yes, Dorian Exred, I will marry you.
She whispered as they exchanged rings. They just held each other, minds mingling with many emotions, but they were content to hold each other. Suddenly, someone tugged on Lydia's dress. She looked down to see Isabella, who appeared out of nowhere.
Mommy, why did you go off?
Isabella asked, breaking the silence. I'll tell you later, Lydia said, picking her daughter up. But I want the others to hear it too. And let's head back. As all this was happening, Tails was flying towards Mobotropolis, dodging out every side street he could to avoid Sandra. It wasn't that he didn't want to get engaged, he just wasn't ready for it. In other words, he had no ring for her, and he didn't want to ask without it. As he flew, he realized he'd gotten horribly lost. You know, Tails feels very much like the type of guy who would propose with a lug nut. Things looked so different from when the city had been dark and metallic, but somehow he felt drawn to a certain street and found himself stopping at a certain door. Knowing Sandra was close behind, he opened the door and ran inside, slammed it shut behind him. In the dim light of the house, Tails could make out two very startled adult foxes, sitting at a table eating a light lunch.
Oh, I'm sorry,
he began, but found his voice trailing off. Though the light was dim, he could plainly see that one of the foxes had two tails. Merlin, is that you?
By the Almighty,
The one with two tails, a female, whispered.
is it possible?
Miles? The other, a male, asked, his voice breaking.
Who are you?
Tails began, but then it hit him.
Mom? Dad?
The female raised her hand to her face, and Tails could see tears glimmering in her eyes.
My baby!
She whispered, then ran to Tails and hugged him tight.
At least in this universe, Tails and his mom and dad aren't complete jerks. I feel good about this. I really do.
See, Rosemary Osmodeus, you can be nice.
Mom!
Tails yelled, before the air was squeezed from his lungs by his mother's hug.
Mom, can't breathe.
Tails whispered as loud as he could.
Oh, I'm sorry. Let me take a look at you.
His mother said, stepping back.
You're growing into a fine figure of a fox, Miles.
Please, Mom, call me Tails. Never liked that name that much.
Didn't like your own father's name?
Male asked, still sitting at the table. Tails blushed a bright red.
I didn't know I was a junior. The name's still lame, though,
he muttered.
It's all right. I didn't like it either,
his father said, smiling.
Come on,
his mother said, dragging Tails toward the table.
I want to know everything about you and what you've been doing.
Honey, let the lit boy alone, Miles Sr. said. He's not over the shock of finding us yet. I'm sure he has just as many questions for us.
All right,
Lily said, setting Tails down in a chair.
You can ask us whatever you want, but once we answer, we do the same for you. Fair enough,
Tails said cautiously.
I just want to know why he had two tails. That's a long story,
Lily said.
The gist of it is this. One of our ancestors, I don't remember his name, was in an accident and his tail split in half lengthwise. He went to a holy one to have it healed, but the spell was cast and each half formed into a separate tail. Since then, at least one in each generation has a double tail.
Makes sense, Tails admitted.
That doesn't explain how I can fly.
Fly? Lorelei asked, surprised.
Yeah, what?
Tails flew up to the roof of the house, then back down.
Amazing, Miles Sr. breathed. I didn't know you could do that, dear.
I can't,
Lorelei said quietly.
Neither can many of my ancestors. I think our son is the first one who tried to even attempt it.
There you are, Sandra said, spying Tails through a window.
Uh-oh,
Tails muttered, thinking about running, but knowing it was futile.
Did you really think I was going to let you get away from me, Miles?
Demanded, barging in the front door.
Kids today, no manners.
Lorelei murmured, but not long enough for it to escape Sandra's attention.
Oh, pardon me,
Sandra said, looking down at her pink dress.
I didn't mean to barge in like that. I was just trying to track down Miles here. Sandra! Tails almost whined. Like you insist on calling me by my name.
Sandra walked over to Tails and kissed him lightly.
Because I can,
she said, smiling.
Does you think you should introduce all of us, son?
Lorelei asked.
Son?
Sandra has whispered.
You mean you're...
At Lorelai's nod, Sandra blushed a furious red.
I didn't think Miles helped me out here. Oh, no. You're doing a great job digging your own hole,
Tails smirked.
I'm not gonna be you on this one.
Don't make me make this a royal order, Sandra threatened, and was immediately sorry as he did.
Warden?
Lorelei asked disbelievingly.
Just who are you, anyway? I'm Princess Sandra of the House of Acorn, second in line to the throne of Mobius. That is, until my newly married sister has kids. It shouldn't take too long.
And just how close are you to our son?
Miles Sr. asked.
Sandra smiled at the bouquet she carried with her. Well, if this bouquet card is any indication, your son's to be asking me a certain question for you soon. You know I don't have a ring for you yet, Sandra, Tails exclaimed. Is that all?
Lorelei asked. She disappeared to the back room for a moment, and when she emerged, she held a small pouch in her hand.
Here you go.
She said, handing it to her son. Tails opened up the pouch. Inside were 3 rings. 2 were plain gold bands, save for the earrings of 2 intertwined tails on each. The third was a platinum band, set with a small, flawless diamond.
What are these?
He asked.
Those belong to your grandparents,
Lorelei said gently.
When I found I was pregnant, they gave them for me when you found someone.
Tails looked down for a moment. When he looked up, his eyes were bright with tears. He quietly walked over to Sandra and dropped to one knee.
Princess Sandra Inkhorn?
He spoke quietly, but with great feeling. By the way, this may be selfish of me, but I kind of prefer Tails being an orphan and his mom and dad dead. Just saying.
Would you do the DNS on her becoming my wife?
He took the platinum ring from the pouch and slipped it on Sandra's finger.
Will you?
Sandra's lips quivered as she tried to smile.
As you even need to ask,
she whispered. She fell to her knees in front of him and kissed him full on the lips, but softly. They stayed there for a few moments, then looked up at his parents.
Looks like I'll get to know my future in-laws,
Sandra said with a small smile. Meanwhile, Donovan had decided to seek refuge inside a sanctuary, of all places. He slammed the doors and leaned back against them, hoping Nadia wouldn't find him there. As for Tails, it wasn't that he didn't want to ask. He just didn't have a ring. Donovan sighed. With all the rebuilding that needed to be done, both buildings and the economy, he knew it would be years before a remotely suitable engagement ring would become available, assuming he would have the money for it. Even worse, he knew he and Nadia couldn't wait that long. I need time to think, he muttered, heading back towards his old room. When he opened the room, it was just as he left it. He didn't change it yet? He thought. I guess he's so sentimental. Not that that's a surprise. A smile tied his lips, unless he's waiting until he has to. Donovan sat down on the bed, then stood right back up on something hard. Huh? He said, looking at huge bowls under the covers. What's this? He wondered, lifting the covers. A box sat in the corner of the bed with a note taped to the top. Donovan tore the note off and looked at it. Your mother thought you might need this today. He read it. She left it when she left you with me. I could guarantee you she's watching you right now, with her blessing, Tanis. Donovan looked down at the box, then at the note, then back at the box. Is this what I think it is? He asked silently. Suddenly, Donovan got the feeling being hugged. The same feeling that was the last memory of his mom before she died. I love you, Mommy. He said, Mommy.
Trixie didn't shock you that time, honest.
But then who threw that lightning bolt from the heavens? It's a clear day.
Moving on.
He picked up the box just as Nadia threw open the door to his room.
I thought I might find you here,
she asked.
What's that in your hand?
Donovan took a deep breath. I better do this before I faint, he said to himself. He walked over to Nadia and opened the box. He took a golden ring out of the box, looking very nervous as he dropped to one knee. He dropped the box and took hold of Nadia's left hand. No, Nadia? He managed to stammer before his voice failed him. Nadia smiled knowingly.
Donovan,
she whispered, a tear of joy falling from her eyes.
If you're trying to ask what I think you're trying to, there's no need, because you already know my answer.
Donovan smiled up at Nadia, grateful to her that he spared him this. He slid a golden ring with a black beryl on his finger. Nadia pulled him up to his feet, kissed him with all her heart. Donovan returned to kiss in kind, but stopped before he could go any further. As much as I love to, there isn't much of a place for it, he said quickly. Nadia seemed to about argue the point, but held her tongue as a small warning rumble searched sanctuary.
I guess you're right,
She said, taking Donovan's hand in hers.
Come on, you got to tell the others.
Donovan smiled to himself. He knew, as did the other two who proposed that day, that life was about to get a little different, and a lot better. Back at the party, Sally was looking for her sister. It was almost time for the newlyweds to leave on their honeymoons, and Sally and Sandra wanted to be at the very beginning of the line of animals, wishing them all farewell. And good luck.
Sis!
Sandra yelled, running into Sally and almost crushing her with a powerful hug.
Sandra, I can't breathe here.
Sally squeaked out, sounding as much as Tails did earlier when being hugged by his mom.
Oh, sorry, but you'll never guess what can't happen.
Sandra released her sister and held up her left hand.
We're getting married!
Sally's eyes narrowed. Don't you think you're a little young to be getting married?
Did I say right this minute? But this just proves we're going to, when we're ready.
Sally relaxed and smiled. I'm happy for you, Sandra, she said, taking a closer look at her sister's engagement ring. Well, where did Tails get this ring? From us, a quiet voice said. Sally looked up and saw Tails standing behind Sandra and two other foxes. What was surprised Sally the most was that one had two tails. The two foxes walked up to Sally and dropped to one knee.
Lorelei Parada, at your service, my queen.
The one with the two tails said.
Miles Parada Sr., also at your service, your majesty,
the other said.
Then you are.
She trailed off as he saw Tails nodding.
Oh, Tails, I'm so happy for you. Know how much this must mean to you. Thanks, Aunt Sally,
Tails said, sounding a little like he used to before he went into the void. What's going on, Sal? Sonic asked, hugging his beautiful bride from behind.
Sonic, I want you to meet Tails' parents,
Sally said quietly.
Are you serious?
Sally's nod. He gave Tails a thumbs up. Way to go, Tails. I always knew you'd find him someday. But just because you have your real family back doesn't mean you're not my little bro anymore. Got that?
When you have it in your way, Sonic,
Tails said, wiping a tear from his eye.
Or should I say, your majesty?
Sonic rolled his eyes. Don't start. He began, but Sally's kiss cut him off. I wonder if there's going to be any more surprises. As if on cue, Nadia and Donovan joined the group.
Guess what?
Nadia called, waving to them as they got closer.
You too?
Sandra screamed happily.
No way,
Nadia said, hugging Sandra.
Do you have any chance?
Tails whispered to Donovan in an undertone. What do you think?
Donovan answered in the same voice. Tails sighed. Well, maybe Dorian got away. I may not like him, but today's not a good day to have a girlfriend at caught up a K.
Donovan nodded, then sighed himself. Then again, he said, gesturing to Dorian, who both Lydia and Isabella were dragging towards the group.
Dorian's gonna be my daddy!
Isabella yelled, hugging Dorian's leg happily. Sally smiled at the three newly engaged couples. I'm happy for all of you, truly. Looks like there's going to be some wedding plans coming up. Oh, good, you're all back, Bunny says. He walked up to him. Come on, everyone's waiting to see us off. It's honeymoon time. Sally and the others couldn't help but laugh at Bunny's eagerness. Sally could definitely relate, as she too had been waiting over a year for this to finally happen. And so the line of well-wishers formed. Each animal in attendance congratulating the brides and grooms. It took well over an hour for the line to near the end, and though they were tired, they all knew it was worth it. At the end of the line was King Emeritus Acorn and Nagus.
It's time for us to go, your majesties,
Nagus said, bowing to both her and Sonic.
But I will not be gone forever.
I hope you will both be here for the birth of your children, Sally said, smiling. Births? Sonic asked, plainly visibly. Sally gave Sonic a playful nudge and smiled instantly. What? You expected only one child? Everyone there gave a hearty chuckle and then made for the couples to leave.
Excuse me,
a strange voice said, causing them all to turn back.
I too wish to give my congratulations to the newlyweds.
Sally regarded the robed figure in front of her cautiously. She was certain he had not seen him at the party until this moment. Him? She wasn't even sure of that. The figure's face was lost in the hood of his robe, and his voice was an unusual mixture of both male and female that left her feeling really weird. She saw the same expression on Sonic's face, but the faces of the four others were different. Their expressions could be best described as a mixture of shocked disbelief and awe. "Thank you," Sally said, forcing a smile as she offered her hand. The white-robed figure took her hand and kissed the back of it softly. Sally felt a subtle warmth rushing through her body, surgery just as she right below her stomach. She laid her hand over the feeling in surprise. Saw both Bunny and Rosie do the same, as the figure kissed each of their hands in turn.
"May your lives be filled with all the happiness Mobius has to offer,"
the figure said to them all. "Everything okay, Sal?" Sonic asked.
"Yeah, I guess,"
Sally said, turning to Sonic. When she turned back to the robed figure, it was gone.
"Where did he go?"
He? Funny. I thought it was a she," Sonic admitted. "But to be honest, I couldn't tell." Sally shrugged it off, but the feeling wouldn't leave her. She wanted to ask Rosie about it, but something stopped her. It wasn't anything she could describe. She just knew that whatever had happened was something wonderful that couldn't be explained. A loud roaring sounded somewhere in the forest outside the city. Most of the Mobians were shocked, and more a few scared, but the three married couples just walked outside as they expected it. 3 dragons stood there. 2 were red-scaled and dressed in blue and metal armor. They stood proudly tall, their bearing reminding Sally a little more of Antoine's. The third was platinum scale, the same color he used to have when he had fur instead of scales.
"Congratulations,"
Rotor said with a toothy grin. "Thanks, Rote," Sonic said. That earned him a glare from the other 2 dragons. "What's with them?"
Rotor chuckled deep in his throat. "They're my royal guards," he explained. "The other dragons won't let me out of their sight unless 2 of them accompany me. They're stricklers about proper form, even more than Antoine."
"Is that being possible?" Antoine asked before anyone else could. "Well, I think they better stand down in front of the King of Mobius," Sonic said with a hidden smile. The 2 red dragons looked surprised, then shocked, then meekly turned their heads away.
"Let's get going,"
Rotor said, lowering his head so Sonic and Sally could climb aboard. He gestured to the other dragons, and he did the same for Bunny and Antoine, Tannis and Rosie. With a loud roar, Rotor took to the skies, with his guards flanking him. "Was that really necessary?" Sally asked, holding her ears. Even though they couldn't see his face, Sonic and Sally could tell Rotor had a sheepish grin.
"I'm sorry, but lately when I take off, I can't help but roar. It must be something Bahamut used to do. I'm still having trouble getting used to the fact I'm king."
"I can definitely sympathize," Sonic muttered, looking at the forest below them. "You'll do fine," Sally said. Sonic looked over at her, wondering who she was talking to. From the expression on her face, it could have been himself, Rudder, or even both.
"Well, we're here,"
Ura said, beginning a slow descent.
"All the places you could go for your honeymoon. Why did you choose here?"
Sonic and Sally smiled and held hands. "Everything started here, Rudder," Sonic said. "Slowly right there, our lives here start together here too." Rudder chuckled as he touched down for a perfect landing with his 2 bodyguards.
"Take care," he said as they slid off. "Do you want us to come back for you 2 weeks, or you can go back to Mometropolis the more conventional way?"
"We'll handle it, Rudder," Sally said. "You just get comfortable with your new position, and keep an eye on Dulcie. I expect to know the moment your baby hatches."
"Wouldn't have it any other way,"
Rudder said with a smile. He looked around and nodded, and saw the other 2 dragons had set their passengers down. With another roar, he took to the skies, leaving his 2 bodyguards to catch up. The 6 looked around the place they had chosen for their honeymoons. A place that had been their shelter to most of them for 13 long years. A place that withstood the horrors of war. A place that was their home. Not home. "We're home," Bunny whispered. Everyone, including Tannis, nodded. Though Mometropolis and the rest of Mobius had been restored, this would be the only place they would truly call home. They looked at each other for a moment. Then they walked in 3 separate directions. Candles flickered briefly in the twilight, but faded as night fell. Under the light of the full moon, 3 newlywed couples finally knew all the joy they had been forced to keep themselves for so long. The next morning, the sun illuminated Queen Sally's face as it rose over Knothole. She blinked open her eyes sleepily as stretched. As he stretched, he felt Sally's arms pull her closer to him. Sally smiled and relaxed for a moment. Part of her wanted nothing more than to lay there in the arms of her king, perhaps even restarting their activity from the previous night. Woo! But another part of her was telling her to get up and go outside. Sally slid out of the bed and into a robe that hung on one of the bedposts. She walked to the door and opened it, and walked outside. She reveled in the early morning sunlight, feeling more alive than she ever had. Without being consciously aware of it, she walked straight to the center knothole, where 2 other road figures were waiting. Not a word was spoken as the 3 ladies looked at each other. They held each other's hands and smiled, tears in their eyes. They stood there quietly as each felt their beloved hug her around the waist from behind and placed a soft kiss on their cheek. They all knew that whatever happened, this was the moment they would remember for all their lives. This was not the end. Merely a new beginning. And then, out of the heavens, Enerjax floated on down. "You weak, pathetic souls! I have come here to rule you all!" And Sonic just smirked as he held a power ring. "I don't think so." Sorry, I love that Mortal Kombat ending so damn much. The season was pretty awesome. Although, I do have a few complaints. Best episode crowner has to go to Armageddon. I feel like that one perfectly wrapped up everything. Gave us a good fight. Gave us Sonic showing off that he had learned from Donovan and had pushed himself to the limits. My only complaint is that I wish there was more of the fight between Sonic and Robotnik, but it was intense. And, believe it or not, I know you guys are kind of going to be shocked by this, considering how used Super Sonic would be in Sonic 2 and Sonic 3 and Knuckles, and how Super Sonic was the end-all, be-all for Adventure 1 and 2 as the final fight. But believe it or not, this was the first time I had seen Super Sonic in any fanfic, so that kind of puts it up. Worst episode has to go to the Fire Emerald one. I'm sorry, but this is the beginning of a great arc. This is the beginning of a huge adventure, and we wasted the ending of it, in the middle part of it, of Sonic acting out of character, of Sally wanting to fuck, and nothing else. It just, ugh. It annoys me greatly. Best developed character goes to Donovan, and probably the best OC. You see, Miken, this is how you do a good OC. Look at Donovan here. This is why I love him so much. Number 1. His parents may have died, but unlike Lightning, he doesn't ignore it. He still mentions it. He still thinks about it. And once in a few episodes, they show up. But he doesn't sit around when somebody else moans about the loss of their parents, go, "Well, you may have lost your parents, but I did worse." 2. We actually see him grow from a loner to a team player, while still having a lot of his own personality. 3. There's more to him than just being the serious guy. He's also funny. He could be a little bit romantic. And we see that he makes mistakes. We see that he makes errors. He may have a wish that can keep him healthy, but it's not perfect. We see him break down. We see weaknesses in him. We see how sad he is. Basically, he's a 3-dimensional character. This is what you need to look at. This is what makes a good character as opposed to a Gary Stu. Somebody who can actually show you more sides to him, and so that he has flaws, that he can make mistakes. Best villain, of course, goes to Robotnik, who was always an intimidating force. But best OC villain has to go to the Kavanoff. A nice, good, crunchy villain. I like it. My biggest complaint with this whole entire thing comes, well, first off, as I mentioned, the sax thing. I feel like it was kind of pointless because it never really amounted to much and kind of detracted. Second of all, has to go to the use of Tails. Yes, I know. Surprisingly, Tails was in this story. I know you may not know it, but he was. I know he did jack all, and don't try to say it's because he was too young. Sandra was kind of the same thing, and she did more. And of course, the use of Sonic. I made a comment one of these episodes that, yeah, feels like Sonic wasn't doing much in the story. Like, I know you don't need to have camera focused on Sonic all the time, but considering that this story is supposed to be Sonic and he's supposed to be the main character, he should have at least gotten involved with all the Emerald fights, at least, or had done something that actually would have moved the plot along, or done something to help the others out, or at least been involved in some of the other battles. At times, it felt more like Dorian Donovan was taking most of the screen time that could have been Sonic's. But still, this doesn't mean that the stuff we got with Donovan wasn't bad. It just that felt like Sonic was distant from all of it. But I wonder if that was their intention, considering that later on, Sonic did feel like he wasn't adding up to snuff. It's kind of interesting to think about. It's one of those things that keeps me going. But the rest of the story was pretty good. It was pretty interesting. It was keeping me on my toes. It kept me going, and the pace was pretty good. Even with the long episodes, I was really interested in what was happening next. Even though I had read this at least 3 times before, it kept me invested. So yeah, that was pretty good. Next, Solidiverse, and then who knows? Some people have given out some requested comments. I might get to those too, because there's some derpy-centric ones. Wait, if they're derpy-centric ones, then that means, oh god, I gotta bring out my dinky voice. Hi-ya!